Hi everyone, Gundam here for a 21st and brand new episode of our special edition Lore of the Universal Century. Today, we're going back again to the 1 Year War era in an attempt to answer a particular question, which is... Yep, in this video, we're going to explore the history of the flying space brain, its mechanical lore, variants, and extract every bit of mechanical knowledge we have on them so far. But let's start by the beginning. What is exactly the Braw Bro? Classified as MAN-03, standing for Mobile Armor for Newtype's Model 3, the Braw Bro was an area-dominant mobile weapon designed by the Principality of Zion in the waning days of the 1 Year War. Manufactured by the Flanagan Institute at the expressive request of Rear Admiral Casey Azabi, this mobile armor was a revolutionary creation, which was supposed to finally put to practical application the weaponization of new types. A gigantesque design with a length of 60 meters for a weight of 2,602 tons, the Braw Bro was actually bigger in size than most contemporary mobile weapons, but this size was actually intentional in order to pack everything it needed to achieve its mission. First, the Braw Bro needed to accommodate a very high output generator with a delivery of 74,000 kilowatts, necessary to provide energy to its absurdly high firepower. This arsenal included a pair of battleship-grade twin-beam cannons and a pair of light cruiser-grade single-beam cannons, which gave the Braw Bro the firepower of a battleship without having to retain the size of one. Aside this, the Braw Bro size was meant to mount more internal fuel tanks, which enabled the mobile armor to outclass any ship and many mobile suits in terms of cruising range, while displaying high speed thanks to its 4 rear engines, which combine a total of 16 thrusters. Eyes on the cage, the Braw Bro also accommodated advanced sensors, which enabled it to detect its targets well over 156 kilometers. Now, the key reason behind the size was actually none of these things. In fact, the Braw Bro real revolutionary feature was it being equipped with a Psychomus system, which enabled a Newtype pilot to control the 5 megaparticle weapons through metallic wires and use them to perform the very first all-range attacks in the Universal Century. With this, the Braw Bro could extend, retract, and move the wires to lead unpredictable and confusing attacks before blasting the enemy with an all-directional fire. And if that wasn't enough, the Braw Bro also displayed very high survivability, with the mobile armor being composed of 2 separate blocks, which could be used as escape crafts if one of them was critically hit, enabling the pilot and the collected data to survive the engagement. Now, the Braw Bro was not devoid of flaws, quite the contrary. First, the all-range arsenal of the Braw Bro was impressive, yes, but kind of limited in number and reach, notably because of the metallic cables connecting the cannons to the Braw Bro, which soon rendered it obsolete in comparison with succeeding mobile armors such as the Helmet and its 12 wireless bits. Secondly, the Braw Bro may have possessed a decent speed, but its maneuverability left much to be desired. Despite its 30 altitude verniers disseminated all over its hull, the Braw Bro embark abilities were mediocre to say the least. This meant that the mobile armor cruised around more like a gunboat rather than a fully fledged mobile weapon. Despite this, the Braw Bro would prove to be the precursor for a lot of new type use machines and an essential prototype in the Universal Century. But that's enough specs for today. Let's get to our lore. The year is Universal Century 79, and the 1 Year War was in full swing. At that time, the Flanagan Institute, Zion's titular Newtype lab, had discovered that among the human population, a small percentage distinguished themselves with high tolerance to G-forces and advanced awareness, and had baptized them Newtypes. After years of research, they had realized that these Newtypes had the particularity of emitting special brainwaves, named psychowaves, which were of non-electric nature, could spread in space, and even more surprising, weren't hampered by Minovsky effect. This filled the Xeon engineers with joy, as it actually resurrected the concept of BSR engagements with a Newtype pilot, using remote-controlled weapons through its psychowaves, being able to deliver all range attacks from afar, and achieve complete dominance in a new front line where visual observation was almost the only thing remaining to pilots. With this concept being praised and approved by the Xeon top brass, the Flanagan Institute started their new development project, which led to the creation of the Psychomu, aka the Psycho-Communicator, which was a large device capable of converting psychowaves into electric signals, finally enabling the Newtype powers to be weaponized. Yet, at that point, the project was far from having achieved practical application. First, the Flanagan Institute's first objective, being able to amplify and spread the psychowave in space, was not yet possible, and for now, the remote-controlled weapons would still need to be connected to the main machine, as it was only possible to convert them and then spread them, not yet the other way. This would later be achieved only with the LMF, but at that point, it was far from being feasible. Second issue, the Psychomu was a large device, a very large one, and thus only a mobile armor-sized vehicle could potentially transport it. In parallel, the Flanagan Institute started the so-called Bishop Plan, which aimed to miniaturize the Psychomu so it could fit in a mobile suit-sized weapon. However, in such early stages, the possibility of doing so was not yet available, and Xeon was instead forced to create mobile armors over mobile suits to host this large Psychomu. This led to the official start of the Braw Bro development project and the creation, in mid-December UC79, of what would be known as the prototype Braw Bro. As its name suggests, the prototype Braw Bro was the prototype version of the future Braw Bro, and distinguished itself by being almost totally identical to the regular Braw Bro model. Externally, there were literally no changes between the prototype and its future regular production version, but internally, there was a slight variation. Quite surprisingly, the Proto Braw Bro didn't mount the Psychomu system, and instead of being manned by a single Newtype pilot, this mobile armor was to be piloted by a crew of 5 all-types operatives, 3 pilots and 2 gunners for a stable performance, or 1 pilot and 4 gunners in order to perform Newtype level all-range attacks. While the Proto Braw Bro not having a Psychomu may seem to defeat the purpose of the machine, it was actually understandable. The Braw Bro mechanical design had to be verified, and Xeon also wanted to see if the machine could be piloted by a crew of all types in the case a Newtype pilot was unavailable. Upon completion, the prototype Braw Bro was assigned to a group of pilots commanded by Lieutenant Simus Al-Bakarov and was sent for a test mission in a shoal zone near Site 6. There, the Braw Bro slightly malfunctioned, and as the crew headed out to repair it, they were spotted by Amuro and Sela in their G armor. Despite Simus' interjections, one of the Braw Bro pilots chickened out and fired, which gave away their position and forced them to start an engagement. There, the Proto Braw Bro stole the G armor on the Gundam, but despite damaging them slightly, the mobile armor was beam rifled by the RX-7802, which destroyed the entire left block and the central cannons. Fortunately, the crew escaped using the right block and were able to bring back to safety what remained of the prototype, alongside the data they had collected carefully during the fight. Back in the Flanagan Institute, The data brought enabled the Xeon engineers to finalize the adjustments needed for the regular Braw Bro, and after including the Psychomu, finally start the production of the MAN-03 Braw Bro. Like most costly machines in UC, the Braw Bro was produced in a 3 units production, which were almost immediately sent to the front line. The Braw Bro Unit 1 was transferred from Site 3 to Granada by the Dolos and was assigned to Newtype pilot Shaliabul, a man returning from the Jupiter sphere. Again, Simus Al-Bakarov returned to serve as his co-pilot, and 2 other pilots joined the mobile armor crew. Assigned to Char's squadron, the Braw Bro was sent alone against the White Base, notably because Char wanted to see the Braw Bro performance first before having to send out Lala and the Elmeth. Engaging the White Base mobile suit forces in combat, Shalia's Braw Bro proved to be a terrifying foe, chopping off the legs of the gun cannon and forcing the other suits to retreat. Nonetheless, Amuron the Gundam eventually overcame the initial confusion and figured the Braw Bro pattern, evading all the wires before finishing the mobile armor with the beam saber. The Braw Bro Unit 1 blew up, killing Shalia, Simus, and depriving Xeon of 2 stellar pilots. The Braw Bro Unit 2 is far less explored, and is only seen briefly as a camera appearance in the original series during Giren's speech before the Battle of Abawaku. Subsequently, this Braw Bro likely participated in the battle and was probably destroyed. As for Unit 3, it was instead transferred to the Granada Mobile Assault Forces and assigned to Ensign Lilia Flober, one of the wingmates of Mallet Sanguine. After Abawaku, this Braw Bro attempted to interrupt the post-1 year war peace talks by assaulting the ship of Xeon Prime Minister Darcia Bakarov, but would be shot down by the escorting Eric 7805. Following the completion of the 3 Braw Bros, the Xeon engineers initially planned for the MAN-03 line to be further extended. However, the appearance of the MAN-08 Elmeth, a more advanced mobile armor, and the early breakthrough in the Bishop plan, illustrated by the Psychomo system Zaku, soon rendered the Braw Bro obsolete and quickly put an end to its own development plan. Nonetheless, the Braw Bro could still serve a purpose. First, the successor of the Psychomo system Zaku, the MSM-01 Psychomo system Zaku High Mobility type, had troubles using the Psychomo under high-speed combat, and so it was the Braw Bro which was used to collect the high-speed data needed to continue the research on the Psychomo. Secondly, the Braw Bro capacity to install multiple separate cockpits, combined with its ability to be pilotable by a crew of all types if need be, caught the eyes of Xeon's top brass. When the final result of the Bishop plan, the MSM-02 Xeon, was designed, it was decided that the new Psychomo-use mobile suit would retain these features seen in the Braw Bro and use advanced versions directly developed from them. This means that while externally the Xeon is the byproduct of the Bishop plan, internally, notably for the cockpits, it is rather developed from the Braw Bro and retains similar features. Nonetheless, having been able to use the design of the Braw Bro to improve future machines was not nearly enough for the Admiralty to be satisfied. Now that the Braw Bro itself was obsolete, it was perhaps time for new Psychomo machines, but the Xeon engineers were now faced with a particular problem. The problem was that they had leftover parts for the Braw Bro, and now, either they found a way to reuse them, either these would go to waste. After a short debate, the engineers of both the Flanagan Institute and of the Abawaku Arsenal colluded into doing a mashup between the Braw Bro development plan and its surplus of parts, and of the Brawrello development plan and its various uncompleted chassis. This resulted in the creation of a hybrid machine known as the MAN-00X2, aka the Brawrello. Like its name indicates, the Brawrello was purely and simply a fused machine between Brawrello and Braw Bro. Reusing an almost unmodified Brawrello chassis painted in pink salmon colors, the Brawrello inherited a rare additional piece, which tore up Psychomo's system and two of the war-guided light cruiser cannons of the Braw Bro. With this combination, the Brawrello could abuse of the superior strut acceleration and firepower of the Brawrello, while blasting the surrounding enemies with all-range attacks controlled via Psychomo. Aside this, the Brawrello also gained the possibility to remotely control via wires its two Itnatas, which greatly extended its reach and enabled it to perform close-range all-range attacks as well. In the end, the only Brawrello completed was finished in the last week of the war, and briefly served as a training machine for Newtype candidates. During that time, we know that the Brawrello was modified to be able to be piloted by a Newtype crew, and notably received a second seater. During the Battle of Abawaku, the Brawrello was sorted by Newtype candidate Pechemonte, and used to great effects against the Federation squads of Jims and Bolts, laying waste in the Federal ranks. After the Brawrello sortie, the Braw Bro on its legacy entered a sort of stasis for several years until the Universal Century finally reached the Grips era. In UC85-UC86, the Auckland Research Institute, one of the Federation new think tanks, obtained data about all Xeon projects and started studying Braw Bro blueprints in their possession, and eventually they used them to create a new high-performance mobile armor, the ORX-007 Hati. An area dominance mobile weapon, the Hati was designed as a fleet-sweeping weapon, able to furtively approach enemy fleets using its cruising form before engaging them in attack form, using its offensive and defensive arsenal to wipe out the enemy. Among its offensive weapons, notably featured two wire-guided bits, each of them being equipped with a primary and a secondary cannon, with the primary cannon possessing the firing output of a mega launcher. Quite surprisingly, the bits were actually not the most deadly weapon of this mobile armor. In fact, the Hati mounted on its underside a large silos, which could transport and fire exactly 800 warheads. Ice on the cake, these warheads, while not being funnel missiles, could have their trajectory loosely modified through the Psychomo system mounted in the Hati, and this was achieved thanks to a large antenna located near the silos, which retransmitted the psycho waves. Defensive-wise, the Hati was also state-of-the-art, as it mounted two different e-field generators protecting each flanks. In addition, the bridge was retractable, which increased the protection of the cockpit and increased the survivability of the pilot. Now, one important thing to know about the Hati was that it wasn't just developed from the Braw Bro. Actually, Auckland had also attempted to revive another one-year-old Xeon idea, which was a concept named the Aegis ship. What exactly was that concept, we don't really know, but apparently that was a plan to create a Psychomo ship which could be remotely controlled by a Psychomo mobile suit. Perhaps the Xeon, why not? In the same vein, the Hati was designed so that it could be remotely controlled by another mobile suit from Auckland, the ORX-009 Gundam Skull, which was developed simultaneously and could remotely control the Hati, as it was just like a big funnel. In the end, the Hati was assigned to Cyber Newtype Rosvice, while the Gundam Skull was assigned to her friend turned crush Ernest McGuire. Both machines would be unleashed on the AoZ during the battle for the Colony Laser, where the Hati would be critically damaged but nonetheless survive the combat. With the Hati officially ended the direct legacy of the Braw Bro, but before closing this video, I want to take a moment to cover the different alternative UC versions of the Braw Bro itself. In the Thunderbolt continuity, The Braw Bro is essentially identical to its regular UC version, except that instead of having 2 double-barrel cannons and 2 single-barrel cannons, it simply has 4 double-barrel cannons, which mean higher firepower as it mounts 8 cannons instead of just 6. In the manga, one Braw Bro is shown to have been captured and sealed in Luna 2 by the Federation, after they failed to operate it because of OS problems. Conveniently, the Braw Bro would be found by Daryl in its Perfect Gundam when the later infiltrated Luna 2, and the Perfect Gundam would magically bond with the Braw Bro and gain the mobile armor as its new backpack before being used to crush the Federation fleets with its orange attacks. In the Evolved continuity, the Braw Bro is fairly similar to the regular version, but this time it is far larger with sort of Big Zamex proportions and is also infected by the Ghost Rider curse, appearing as a sort of organic hellish machine. If you didn't watch that particular Evolved episode, just watch it. It really shows how terrifying Newtype's weaponry actually is. The last alternative UC Braw Bro is the Origin version, which is the most drastic departure and in my opinion, a massive improvement. First, like the Thunderbolt Braw Bro, the Origin Braw Bro only used double-barreled cannons, but that's not even the most drastic change. The most drastic change is actually the body, which seems to mimic a sort of asteroid camouflage and surround a sort of core which include 4 mono-eye sensors. As for the world-guided cannons, they are not anymore connected by regular cables, but rather by some tentacles lookalikes, which accentuate the alien vibes of this scary machine. To end this video, let's pick 2 last cool facts about the Origin Braw Bro. First, this rendering of the Braw Bro eventually get limited produced for the Battle of Abawaku in the Origin continuity. Secondly, well, this mobile armor doesn't have a model number. Instead, MAN03 is the model number of Shaliabul itself. A nice catch to the fact that the weapon is the Newtype, rather than the mobile armor. And we have now completed today's topic, and I hope you all like it. This will be all for today's video, but stay tuned for future lore content delivered on the same channel. Hit the like button, and most importantly, comment and subscribe as it will really help the channel to flourish. So long fellow Newtypes, until the time of our next special edition.